Here. Councilwoman Bettina. Councilman Phillips.
Councilman Phillips has an emergency, so he won't be able to attend tonight.
Councilman Casella. Here. Supervisor Thurston.
Here, everyone please rise. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Tonight, the first item will be the agenda. Since Councilman Phillips is unable to attend, the first item under discussions on what moratorium was his topic, so I propose that we don't, discuss that tonight. Wait till he comes back, because I'm not sure what he wanted to discuss.
No, I'm good with that.
All right? Everybody all right with that?
Yep.
So that's the only amendment that I have.
Okay, so
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda with the number one discussion, townwide moratorium on building being removed from the agenda tonight.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Next item is to acknowledge the minutes of the June 26, 2023 meeting. Any comments?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Next item is we have a public hearing tonight scheduled with respect to the local law amendment. This is for updating fees and fines. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor to open the
Aye.
public hearing? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Barbara,
Hi.
please.
So we've been going over the fees and fines a few times, and unfortunately, the copy in front of you has had a few changes, not new fees, just some changes as far as from the first draft to the second draft. We've moved a few things around that make more sense in the schedule. So Jim said that we would have to adjourn this till August.
So will we get the new changes in
Yes, so-
timely so that we'll have it so that that's the last time?
Yeah.
I believe that will be the 11th time, Jim, and half of them are probably because of legal, so we
there
need to
was-
make sure.
Barbara and I had a kind of a disconnect regarding, there was a fee which I thought was a conceptual review fee, and it's actually a review fee for buildings plans. Right now, the way our code is drafted is, if someone comes in with a complicated building permit application, there is a provision that allows the building inspector to require the posting of an escrow to review the application. And what Barbara had suggested was that there be a flat fee of $300 for engineering review, rather than the complication of posting an escrow, getting it approved, sending out bills, monitoring bills. And, it's Barbara's estimation that $300 would cover that amount. What happened was, I had thought that applied to conceptual reviews before the planning board. So I put it in the planning board section rather than the building permit section, which is where it properly should be. So that actually is helpful in that it streamlines that approval process. And then the other thing is we reorganized some of the fees that were, the building permit fees are now all under Chapter 85, which is our chapter in the code regarding the implementation of the uniform code. So our building permit fees are in a separate section of the code from subdivision site plan review fees. Subdivision is under Chapter 214, and the site plan review and escrow fees are under 240. So I apologize to the board. Barbara and I had kind of a miscommunication, but I think, at the end of the day, now we have it worked out. But, it's been introduced for consideration by the public.
If there's any public comment tonight, we'll accept that.
Regarding it.
Yes.
And the main thing is, there's no new, we haven't
Right.
added any fees.
Okay.
From all the fees you've looked at all these months. It was
Okay.
just a typo in where it was put.
Okay, so do we now have that, or will we have it? Because there's always that
Well,
period of time.
we have to wait 7 days.
7 days, right.
So we have to.
So I'll make that change, within
Okay.
the next 2 days and have it for the
Okay.
next town board meeting.
Okay. Okay, very good, thank you.
And the only other thing, we have spoken about an amnesty for the rest of this year for expired permits. And Jim told me today, that's not something that I have the authority
No, the board has to
do.
rule.
So since this has to be put on August 21st, I would appreciate something from the board to also approve the amnesty to help the residents.
So what's the scope that you would like us to consider?
So there would be you'd have to, if you have an expired building permit, you'd have to open it and close it by December 31st. After December 31st, then that other new fee kicks in where it's the building permit plus a 10%
Okay.
fee. So we'd like to give the residents the chance to close it, and I bet you in most instances, it's just a matter of having us go out or getting the electrical certificate that they may even have that they just forgot to submit to us, so we could clear a lot
So
of
that's for existing permits, new permits, the new fees.
existing expired.
Expired, yes.
permits. And they'll be notified?
Well, we'll send letters.
That's what I mean, you'll
Yes,
notify them.
Now, is that for residential and commercial or just residential?
just residential.
So Jim, you would add this to the resolution next week or on the
Yes,
21st?
yeah.
Yeah, we'll need to have it.
Yeah,
I'm
I
good.
support.
I think that
Right.
makes sense, Barbara.
And I'd like to, we may even get all the letters ready with the hope that this gets approved, because we'll already be near the end of August, so we want to give people
Fine,
the good 4 months at that point.
Right,
sounds good.
okay. Okay, thank you.
So if you need the approval, I'll make a motion to approve adding this amendment that Barbara just spoke about free amnesty.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be, we'll have a resolution. for
Resolution
next-
at that time.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
just being added.
Barbara, how many,
Thank you, Barbara.
ballpark, how many expired permits are there?
Around 2,000.
2,000?
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
We want to giddy up.
That's right.
Get them
So
closed.
again, some of those were pulled where people, didn't do the work. I mean, so it's, we'll see how many come
Yes, we
back
may
in.
find that some, they never did the work, and we'll just be voiding them. Sometimes it's just getting in touch with the electrical inspector to get that, and then it's paperwork and it gets closed. Some, they'll need a final site inspection, so I think a lot of them could probably be closed quite quickly.
good.
Good, okay. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
If anyone here in the public has any other comments on this, particular issue of the town code change, please come on up, identify yourself, and state your question, issue. Okay, seeing none?
Seeing none, I make a motion, we close the public hearing, at
Second.
least for this one.
Yep.
Or actually,
Wait,
adjourn it to the.
Public hearing.
Yes. That's what,
Close it
the
here.
21st, right? Adjourn it to the 21st.
Adjourn the 21st.
Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn to the
Second.
21st.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay,
Barbara.
thank you, Barbara.
Thanks, Barbara.
Happy anniversary.
The next item is the public portion of the meeting for comments on the agenda items. So do I have a motion to open the public portion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. So if anybody has any comments they'd like to make on any of the items here under discussion and the resolutions, please come on up, identify yourself with your question. Again, reminder, the first item on the agenda is no longer on the agenda. So, okay, Margaret, hello.
Yeah, I'm Margaret Lowe. I live at 34 Sherwood Heights. So I sent a letter asking for a cooperative agreement where we're having drainage issues, and we've done every single thing that we can do on our property, and we're still having pretty severe drainage issues. So I sent a letter requesting a cooperative agreement where I would pay for excavation on my neighbor's property to build a berm and a swale, and you guys would cover the other costs. Do you have any questions about the issue, or how long it's been ongoing, or how many site visits I've had, or the magnitude? I mean, we spent $120K with putting in great big drainage pipes and a retaining wall, and there's literally nothing more we can do on our property.
I think that thanks to the meeting that we had, the other day, we were able to, I think, get that understanding. Councilman Kinsella, myself, Judith, Sabriz, Barbara, and so forth, and Margaret and Randy, we're here. to attend. So we had a very, productive, also John Bodendorf from CPL and Jim Horan were there. So as a result of that, we came to, I think, a good understanding, which is reflected in the resolution tonight. But thank you to Margaret and Randy and folks around there for their patience. It went too long, but now hopefully tonight we'll pass the resolution and get this behind us. So anybody have any questions for Margaret? I think we've addressed it. And
No, I think you summarized it very well.
Yeah. Okay. Any other, comments?
I can appreciate that at not the 11th hour exactly, the 11th hour and the 59th minute, the 59th second, this mention of a townwide moratorium is no longer in front of us for discussion, but that's not why I was here initially. I'm here because we have a continuing piece of business between us. In January of 2023, this board repealed Town Law Section Code 240-50.
Excuse me, that's
But
not on the agenda tonight.
We don't have it on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah,
I
that's
wanted to update you with respect to our progress in the face of the failure of the town board to enact any
Well,
process. or
again,
procedure.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we do have this standing rule that we don't entertain any comments, otherwise it will, morph into all sorts of comments. So I have to maintain that decorum, Ken. And if you
No, I fully-
want to send us a letter or,
Well, I fully appreciate that. And I
Please.
also appreciate that had this matter remained on the agenda, and hopefully it will not return until it's fully vetted, I would have addressed these comments about that application in the context of that agenda item. I'm sorry for taking up your time, and I
no,
appreciate it.
that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments on the agenda items that we have?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Motion and second to close the public portion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. So the first item, which was discussion, I think we probably had, the discussion on the stormwater, but Jim or Tim, do you have anything you'd like to add on that? And I would like to say that since Margaret's here and Randy's here, that perhaps after that brief discussion, we can move on the resolution
Sure.
itself.
I can address that. So, as was discussed with Ms. Lowe, there is some drainage issues that are resulting from stormwater runoff from uphill of her property. And we had a meeting as was discussed, and John Bodendorf had been out and visited the property and had indicated that he has a fix which he believes is workable regarding some drainage swales to convey the stormwater away from the house on the Low property and deposit it into the stormwater collection systems along All Angels. One of the issues, with respect to the town is that there's been some considerable erosion
Right.
at the property, which could result in MS4 violations on behalf of the town. So that really is legally, the biggest impact on the town. While it does have impacts on the properties themselves, it also has impacts regarding the regulatory structures imposed on the town.
And Walter Artis he's in full agreement with what we're discussing and proposing tonight.
So, the resolution that is on for this evening is to approve a proposal to do some survey work with respect to the property, primarily, I believe, for topography to get. One of the things that's important when you're doing drainage issues is you need to establish basically conclusively what the elevations are from the property, because, you know, stormwater really is a function of gravity, and, you know, the elevations and the topography. I had an opportunity to look at, you know, some of the topographical maps from when the subdivision was built, but, you know, they're pretty dated. You know, over time, the stormwater flows could change, the topography, create, you know, stormwater courses or ditches or gullies that were not there previously. So, you know, in order to put together a good plan for drainage of the property, you know, that's the preliminary step, is to basically get an understanding of where the water's coming from, how much water is coming down, and, you know, what practices are needed to channel that away in an effective manner. So that's part of the proposal that's been attached by CPL. So there's design work and survey work of the property that's associated with it.
Can I just add on the survey? I looked up their quote, and while it is everything Jim just described, it also includes GPR survey, which is a scan of all the underground areas to make sure there aren't buried utilities in there. And because it's private property, right, so we want to make sure that there isn't anything damaged as part of what we would provide. So.
Actually, to that point, there is... that was an issue with respect to, my understanding is that the construction of one of the houses, when it was originally built, there was the existing 10-inch water main was uncovered, and there was a water main that had to be relocated as a result of the construction because it was not located in the original easement that was granted to the town. So that's one of the other issues that's kind of associated with this, in that, you know, there is a stormwater, there is a water main that's running through some of these properties, at least one of these properties, and I believe it may run along the boundary line in one area. And so getting an exact location of those water mains would be helpful. And, you know, as part of this project, if the easements need to be adjusted, that's certainly something we can do as part of this project.
So, you know, Tim, as I understand it, it's the survey, right? Then you're going to be looking at, you know, the necessary improvements or where, as Jim mentioned, and then there's the final plan. Right. That then, once that's in place, then, you know, Margaret and Lo and Randy and them, you know, they can go and remediate as necessary. Right. Okay.
Yeah, so you'll have the drainage improvement plan as well as the survey.
Correct. Yep. And that's not to exceed 13,000, correct? Right. Tim?
So we have a resolution out there, resolution number 94.
2023-94.
So as long as unless there's any other questions, I think that I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution 2023-94 so we can move forward with helping the Lowe's get their property fixed. Again, they're going to be paying a lot of out-of-pocket cost as well. Yeah. Randy, do you want to say something?
Just a question.
Sure.
I know, I heard everything, I understood, just from our man, is there an expected time frame associated with the survey?
We can get the authorization tonight, and based on that, we can probably have boots on the ground out there within 2 weeks, and maybe an additional 2 to 3 weeks after that. So I'd say give us a month, maybe 4 weeks total.
Okay.
Sure. So the motion on the table.
Motion.
Second.
And second, motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you. And thank you, Margaret, for your patience.
And Steve.
And, yeah. Okay, thanks. Okay, the next item is the posting of 4 unsafe buildings under Chapter 93 of the Town Code. Jim, would you like to comment on this?
Sure. The building department has identified 4 unsafe buildings. At a prior meeting, the town board authorized CPL to conduct structural evaluations of those buildings. Those structural assessments were done. With respect to all 4 of the properties, they were basically, the structural engineer had determined that, in his opinion, the structural conditions required that the buildings be demolished, that he did not see any clear fixes with respect to the structural deficiencies at the buildings. A number of these buildings have already had partial collapses. They were, for the most part, have openings in the roof, structural issues, mold issues, water damage issues. So the buildings have had some issues. The furthest property along that we've proceeded in the process is 120 New Hamburg Road. And that property was, the owner of the property was in justice court regarding a building code violation, which was resolved last week. The property owner was provided with a copy of the structural assessment report. And in discussions, she had indicated that there is potentially a sale of the property to developers or contractors who were looking to demolish the property and build a new structure there. So hopefully the new person can get on the process, get on board with that. We have I prepared one of the things that has dragged out this process was back in December of 2021, New York State Codes in Albany has added additional requirements to the posting of unsafe buildings. They require an itemization of the structural defects at the building with citations to the applicable provisions of the Uniform Code. And those additions have been made to the structural report, and they were updated last Friday. I have an order, a town board order, for the posting of the unsafe building at 120 New Hamburg Road. One of the, and it's for service upon the owner of the property. All of these properties are currently vacant, as far as we are aware. With respect to 120 New Hamburg Road, I conducted a mortgage search, and there is no search, there is no mortgage against the property owner in the records of the Dutchess County Clerk. With respect to the other 3 properties, it's my recommendation that we conduct mortgage searches on those properties, because in addition to notifying the property owner, the town should notify any record mortgage holders, because their collateral is being demolished. So if any property owner, or if any of the property owners have taken out a mortgage on the property, the mortgagee, which is typically a bank or other lending institution, is entitled to notice. So I would ask that, I will prepare, I would ask the town board at this time to authorize my office to conduct, to reach out to a title company to get a mortgage search on those properties. I don't necessarily believe that there are mortgages on those properties, but better safe than sorry, frankly. And then we can prepare resolutions with respect to those other properties going forward. The process going forward is that after the town board approves the posting order that the property is unsafe, the town board serves a notice upon the property owner. Also, a Liz Pendants is filed with the county clerk's office to put the world on notice that the property is unsafe, and that should the property owner attempt to get mortgage financing or sell the property, that any future owner would be aware of that unsafe condition. And then also, so the order provides that within 30 days of the service of the order, the property owner has to begin the demolition of the property or contact the town to make suitable arrangements, and that the demolition of the property has to be completed within 60 days from the date of the order. The order that I prepared for 120 New Hamburg Road, the property owner is also entitled to, similarly what we did for the property cleanup on 376, the property owner is entitled to a public hearing, or not a hearing, it doesn't have to be noticed as a public hearing, but the property owner is entitled to a hearing to appear before the town board and either explain, again, with some sort of proof as to why the building is not unsafe, or why the building owner has a different method for repairing the property, or for an explanation for additional time to tear down the building because of some reason or another. Again, the cost of the demolition, should the town be forced to demolish the building, the town then has the ability to, so the town keeps a track of the cost of the demolition of the building and the associated costs, and that then gets levied on the tax bill for the parcel at the end of this year when the tax levy gets sent up to the county clerk. So it would be levied like you would levy an unpaid water bill or sewer bill, something of that nature.
So tonight, what you're doing is requesting this board to authorize the title searches? You to conduct the title search?
Today, I'm asking for an order regarding 120
New Hamburg
Road. And that's to authorize the building department to post the property.
Hold on. Why does the town board have to authorize that?
Because that is the way Chapter 93 is written.
I would argue that's inaccurate, because if a building inspector feels that a building is unsafe and an imminent threat of collapse, they should have the ability to post that building, not wait for a town board meeting.
So what the case law says is, ultimately the question is, what's the definition of imminent?
I'm being told by other municipalities we're doing it wrong, and I'll tell you why we're doing it wrong. 120 New Hamburg Road is a complete disaster, okay? This building has no floor, okay? I've been in this building, I've been adjacent to this building, and I can tell you from a first responder perspective, if we are dispatched to that building, okay, and there's any indication that somebody's inside, firefighters are going to go inside and attempt to search that building. There's no placard on that building, and I was told that it was posted and the posting was removed by this town. That's totally inappropriate. I don't know where we're getting this information from. We need to research better, because this is what I want to see, Jim, on the front of these buildings. This placard right here, which we do not search a building with this placard right here. This is what other municipalities are doing. It's not the fire department's responsibility to post this. This is a code enforcement responsibility. We need to fix this provision so that we have the ability to ensure the safety of our first responders. Right now, this process where we have to wait for a town board meeting, where we have one meeting in the month of July, we have a building that's falling down that was posted previously according to code enforcement officials in this town, and the posting was removed based on information that they were provided. So we need to fix this. I do not believe what we're doing is correct.
Can I just say?
Sure, Judith.
I did go back and repost the building, not with that placard, but I did go back the next day and repost it. I also emailed the fire department that that was a posted building. Jim and Barbara
And we
I have done
discussed that. and
I'm not
agreed
going to get into the back and forth because I understand there is interpretation. We're not here to have that debate. My position is that we must err on the side of safety, not only for the public and not only for folks that happen to be walking by this building, but these types of buildings do catch on fire more than buildings that are not in this condition, right? And the last thing I would want to see inadvertently is someone didn't get the memo, right? And there's a car parked out front and we're going to do a primary search and there's no floor. And we knew that ahead of time. So I understand there's case law and I understand there's interpretation, but we need to make sure that we are being more effective with this.
So I can follow up with Buildings and Codes in Albany. This was, my interpretation was based on a memo that they had issued in December of 2021.
And your interpretation may be correct in that particular context, but the bottom line is there was a period of time that there was no posting on this structure, and the little postings that our code enforcement officials are putting are there for the purpose, in my opinion, of notifying the resident or the homeowner that returns home and sees that their building is no longer inhabitable. We need placards like this, okay? If you go to Fairview or Town of Poughkeepsie, you're going to see these. We need to develop a mechanism by which if we have a known structure that's in imminent threat of collapse, right, especially after 9 inches of rain, right, that they are posted properly. And this right here is on the front of the structure for the purposes of preventing tragedy from our first responders.
Well, we have 4 actually that we need to do that for, not just the one at 120 New Hamburg, so all 4 should be posted.
And they may be, and we say, I don't want to get into it right here, but when you say posted, there is a definition for posted that we are following. I get that, but I think we need to have a nice, consistent procedure and mechanism to prevent miscommunication.
Agreed.
Thank you.
So, Jim, do you still need a resolution for the title search?
Yes. So, we'll do the title search as well.
Because I think,
So I'll work with the building department and get, some, and I understand the issue, frankly, is...
If you can move the mic closer, they can't.
Sorry. The issue basically comes down to the determination of what's the definition of imminent, imminent danger. So we can ask for, some additional guidance from Codes in Albany with respect to that.
If you want to see imminent danger, Jim, all due respect, go to 120 New Hamburg Road.
No, I don't I don't necessarily disagree with that. I'm just following the guidance that was issued regarding due process with respect to the property.
But I think, Bill, because of what you raised, that's why we told Judith still to go out and repost.
Certainly, no fault on our code enforcement.
No,
There's
not
just
at all.
there is simply an inconsistent communication going on here. I'm not saying it's the attorney's fault. I'm not saying it's code enforcement's fault. We just have to make sure before we solidify or codify this process that we don't have that time period where, okay, we know as a town that this building has no floor, but we got to go to the town board meeting to get approval. I don't want that.
If we have buildings in the town that our building department has said are dangerous and, they should be marked as such. All buildings should be, I love that red sign. I think that's great. You can't miss it. But any buildings that a building inspector has looked at and says it's unsafe needs to be documented and needs to have something like that posted so everybody knows. I mean, all due respect to all our firefighters and emergency people, they put their lives on the line every day, but also for people in the development or in the neighborhood, so they know, watch the kids, they shouldn't be going on private property to begin with, but God forbid, something could happen. So I know it's additional work, but I think it's prudent to put any building that our team has said is unsafe and
So-
should be
So just so the board knows, there's a range,
demolished.
there's a range of unsafe buildings. So you start with a building that may be vacant and have broken windows and windows that are open and doors that are open. So, by the New York State Property Maintenance Code and the town code, that is considered to be an unsafe building. That gets noticed, and with respect to, the property owner is then
Right.
forced to board up the building.
Right.
All the way up to the building is beyond repair and must be torn down.
And I think that falls
So-
into being condemned.
Right.
I think
Condemned
when-
is not a good, condemnation is really not the word to be used.
Okay, whatever
because-
word it is, that a building is on the edge.
Jim, again, I
of
think
falling
what we've
down.
discussed before, and Bill raises
Needs
the
to-
legitimate point, if that building structure is such that
Right.
first responders and so forth cannot enter with any degree of safety or assurance of safety, that's one of the extremes that you're talking about. There are some other conditions, a hole in the roof, but may not be
The most
threatening
common,
imminent collapse.
the most common one that is not as serious as structural integrity is when the furnace doesn't work during the cold months.
Right.
The building
That's-
can be unsafe at that point if it can't maintain a certain temperature. We see that all the time. And just let me be clear, our code enforcement officials come out on a regular basis and they post buildings that are quote-unquote unsafe. Tonight, we're talking about the highest degree of unsafeness, if you will, which is structural integrity. That's what I'm focused on. I don't want to give any implication that I'm, indicating that the code enforcement isn't posting buildings.
No,
They
no,
are.
that's why I said structural.
I'm out with them almost every weekend, right? They do a great job.
Nobody's
This is
saying
the most serious ones that I want to make sure if the town is aware of a situation of imminent collapse, that we're not hesitating and waiting for a due process hearing to post it. That's all.
Yeah,
So
and that's fine. It's-
Listen, we've known about these properties for quite some time. Judith and the building department have been to us, and I've talked to them many times. We've got one on Dogwood Hills, as a matter of fact, where the roof is literally collapsed. Thank God there's nobody living in that place, but that's another one that should be as part of the four that you were talking about, that we really need to take care of, and we can't continue to, kick the can down the road. So whatever we got to do tonight, let's figure out what we got to do. If you need a resolution to go do a research on title, et cetera, let's get it done tonight. August 21st, let's get it done.
Yeah, no, so again, there's kind of two different
Right.
issues. One is the mechanism whereby the town has the ability to tear down the building, and then there's this kind of a separate track with respect to notice to the public, firefighters, and things like that regarding the unsafe nature of the building. So there's two, one is, the removal of certain property rights, which commands due process, whereas, the nature, an advisory, placard to the public that there's an unsafe condition is kind of, is a different issue, which we
So
can
Jim,
certainly address.
what do we need to pass tonight that will give us the ability to move quickly, expeditiously on this issue?
So, again, as to Bill's point, realistically, if it is in the nature of an unsafe building that is in immediate danger, basically what you do is the building inspector or fire inspector or whoever, the code enforcement personnel is on the scene and makes that determination, they can make a call to mark the building as uninhabitable, people to keep out, and then you have a hearing after the fact.
After the fact.
So that's permissible. What due process requires is that at some point in time, there's a hearing. If it's an imminent threat, you can post it, then have the hearing, or if it's, not as imminent a threat, you say, you establish the hearing, you get the authority. So
hypothetically, they post it, can we then, in the next agenda, schedule a hearing for The 21st of August? Or do we need notice?
I mean, one of the things you could do right now is,
That's what I'm
I
asking.
think, with respect to the buildings that we have
The
not
four.
posted, make a determination that they are an imminent threat right now, and that they be posted, and that there will be a hearing on the 21st.
Judith, would you like to speak to the 4 structures?
I don't know if you were, because I know that the letter, the amended letter came in after it was, do you guys have the amended letter in front of you from the structural engineer?
No.
I have it, so I'll bring it up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judith.
I have it, but thank you.
So Howie Prager, the fire inspector, Sue Dale, the building inspector, Barbara Roberti, myself, Dan Franks, we've all seen these properties, and as far as I'm concerned, and Jim and I have had many conversations, and I obviously defer to his authority and his knowledge base, we feel that these structures are not structurally sound, but again, that's based on a bunch of criteria that our experience has given us the ability to make that determination. We are following what Jim's advice is about posting them. I did go out to each one today. 120 does have a posting on it that says, unfit, do not come, do not enter. It is boarded up. The owners have been compliant. They have been talking about selling it, but this has been ongoing, so I'm concerned about if this one's going to go through or not as well, so I want to cover that base. 16 Dogwood has gotten worse. The roof is collapsing further. At this point, because of the duration of the roof being missing, I would imagine that the water has completely, in our report kind of, states that the floor cannot be sound. There are also parts in the back of the building that are obviously collapsing. So I know that the homeowner is not staying there, although I was there today, so I could tell she plants a lot of flowers. She was back. There's new flowers there. But I don't believe that she is going in the building, but if she is, I think that would warrant us going and letting her know she shouldn't be going in the building. Then we have 1259 Route 376, who has a partial collapse, and I did try to see, there's a gate. It's locked. I did not breach that, but from this neighbor's property, you can see that it is collapsing. And again, I don't believe anybody's even in there, but I would be concerned about, because I did speak to the fire departments, and if they think there might be somebody, they will go in. So I want to protect not only vandals, children, et cetera. The other property is 101 Old Post Road, and that property does have visual signs as well of collapse. And again, with the collapse, how much water damage has completely collapsed the floor. The front, you can actually see daylight through, and I could see that from the road. As well, these properties have all been encroached by weeds. There's all kinds of material growing all over, so it's almost becoming, it is unsightly, it is a danger in my opinion, but it's also rodents, et cetera. You don't know what's going to be living in there. So I feel at this point all 4 properties are
And on this,
warranted.
each of the letters, spell out the unsafe conditions. And Jim, reading your memo on the law on this would satisfy
Yes.
those requirements of the law, right? These unsafe conditions that we've specifically identified.
Right. I mean, that was basically the newer wrinkle that buildings and codes had imposed, because, all the proceedings that I have done prior to this were just notations regarding the structural infirmities in a particular building with respect to, roof conditions or floors that had buckled or, things of that nature. What codes had cited, based on the revisions in the 2020 code, the 2020 Uniform Code had added requirements regarding due process for posting do not occupy buildings in the uniform, or under the Uniform Code. So again, what it had basically said is that that there should be opportunity to be heard and an appeal process before posting unless there was an imminent danger to life, property of that nature.
So since these letters have been issued, the properties have been posted, correct?
The only property that has been posted
To 120?
is 120.
Yeah.
And I want to just add that that's the only property that does have the windows
Central
boarded
wire.
up, caution
Correct.
tape, construction fence. Every other property is open, and you can get in a variety of ways because of the state of
Correct.
disrepair. And 16 Dogwood itself, if I just push on the door, I know I can go in. So none of these owners have responded to my numerous violations. They have not responded to, calls, because I was on speaking terms with a couple of them. And so I feel at this point, again, and Jim we have to give them so much time, but at this point, I think because their lack of response as well, and the fact that I could get in, anybody, I think a lot of people.
So Jim, my question again is, can we schedule something for the 21st meeting
we
in
can.
light of this?
And then-
at the same time, you go and do the title
Right,
search?
and then the other issue is to that issue regarding, securing the buildings. I mean, one of the things is that the town has to, if the town is going to go forward with this and the owners are not going to be cooperative, we're going to have to engage, contractors to be able to do the work. I don't think we really have forced labor to do the work, so I think it's going to have to all be contracted out.
But for tonight,
Right.
that's in the future based
No,
on
but
certain
like,
things happening.
so, yeah, I mean, and that's kind of one of the issues with respect to, we will certainly, I'll, do the work and we'll get the placards, the unsafe building placards that Bill had referenced, and we'll get those, we'll get the standards from codes as to, how they need to be posted, and also, serve the property owners with respect to, the current deficiencies, with the anticipation that they will have an opportunity at the August 21st meeting to have an
So
opportunity.
tonight, we authorize title searches, and we can authorize the meeting, the
Right.
hearing for the residents, not a public meeting, but it's a hearing for them,
Right.
correct?
Right.
Okay.
Question.
And then, just to follow that point up, as Bill had noted, the building inspector has inherent authority under the New York State Property Maintenance Code to go out and post unsafe buildings that are an imminent threat.
So are you saying that some of these buildings are occupied by residents?
I would say that none of them are occupied.
Okay.
16 Dogwood, she does go there. But I can't say, first of all, she's been living in her car, so she never, ever stayed inside the house. The water and the electric, to the best of my knowledge, are turned off. KMO has confirmed the water is off, and I believe the electric is off, and that's been turned off for some time. The only two things that happen at 16 Dogwood and 1259, which Jim probably has some input on, they have garbage pickup. So I believe that's their way of saying that they're still habitating, it's habitable by them. Somebody had told me that. I don't know if that's true. But 16 Dogwood, she only goes there and gardens. She goes in there and putzes around, but I do not believe she goes in the house.
Then I don't understand what the, if they were occupied structures, I could understand it. We'd have to go through this entire due process to basically kick somebody out of their house. These are unoccupied structures. I don't understand why there's any reservation or hesitation to post these buildings unsafe. I don't understand this. This sounds so bureaucratic to me that we're going to wait until we have a town board meeting in order to decide if we should post these buildings. My understanding, Jim, is that the building officials have the, as you said, inherent authority to make this determination if there's an imminent threat. Right now, in my opinion, we are putting bureaucracy before safety, and I think that that's inexcusable. If you feel as a certified building official in New York State that a building is an imminent threat, you should be posting it. We shouldn't have to sit here and come to a meeting and decide if we're going to do a due process hearing. That makes no sense to me. I understand if somebody's living there and they're refusing to leave. I get that. These are unoccupied structures. We have the knowledge as a town, especially right now on the record, that these buildings are unsafe. I think that by not posting these buildings, expeditiously, it's creating more of a liability.
Bill, it's my understanding what we were, I think, agreeing on is that they post and repost now, okay?
Right, but I'm being told
But
that...
then there's a process, though, that leads to demolition.
I get
There
that.
has to be a meeting
I get that.
for that.
I'm not talking about that. My concern is that only one of these buildings, correct me if I'm wrong, only one of these structures is posted right now.
That's
It is
correct.
posted,
And that's what we're saying.
And it's only posted because I made an issue of this last week on a fire call. That's why it's posted now. Okay? This needs to be understood that any building that's imminently unsafe is posted immediately.
Correct.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I think we're agreeing, that Judith can go post.
I mean, I could care less about the demolition due process hearing. I'm more concerned about the immediate short-term
Safety issue.
hazard.
Sure.
Sure.
I mean, I understand we got to be fair with the property owners, but right now, we're being unfair to those that may have to respond to this property.
Correct.
so just as a follow-up to what you said, and Jim will have to, weigh in on, we posted it unsafe. We did not put the placard you pointed out. So we would have to also post it in that manner.
Well, I think the buildings need to be posted unsafe as per what you've previously done on an unsafe building. My point before was we need a mechanism whereby when a building is an imminent threat to public safety, we have a mechanism where these placards, which are placards that are consistent with the international code, are built into our process so that if you have a structure that's going to fall down, I'm not talking about a building that doesn't have a furnace working, I'm talking about a building that's going to fall down like 120 New Hamburg Road. Again, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a car parked out front, okay? And I've seen this where squatters are in the vicinity, and I thought I saw somebody go in, right? We pull up at 2 o'clock in the morning with the fire department, we see that placard. Hold on, guys, wait a minute here. Before we go running in the front door here to try to make a rescue, let's understand that this is one of those buildings that has no floor.
And my understanding also is when we post, we have the right to secure the door as best we can, so I just want clarity on that.
That you would have to refer to the provisions within the code. I don't know offhand. Making the building safe is something that we try to do when we leave the property, but I don't know what the laws say specific to code enforcement with respect to that. I don't want to further delay the meeting here, but I've made my point, and I understand that we all want the public's interest in mind here. I get that, but let's understand the priorities when it comes to safety versus due process, and that's all I have. I'll yield back. Thank you.
So, Jim, again, to request, what are the resolutions we need?
So the
consistent with what
resolution would
Councilman
be to authorize service of the order on the property owner of 120 New Hamburg Road, which includes setting a public hearing for August 21st, the August 21st meeting, and then also filing of the Liz Pendens in the county clerk's office for that property, and then authorization of a mortgage search on the 3 remaining properties, and public hearing subsequent to the posting of those properties as unsafe for the August 21st meeting.
Why wouldn't we do the same process for all 4?
Yeah.
Do them all the same, the 21st?
Because right now, we have an order prepared for 120. We do not have an order prepared for the other 3, and we did not do a search of the other 3. So 120, we are ready to go on.
But we had the 4 letters.
All right,
Yes.
with the conditions.
So
I thought all the conditions were already met here, that they would allow you to go do what you need to do with the posting and whatever else you have.
Yeah, I mean, that is, so, again.
I just would have thought it would have saved time to do all 4 at the same time, because they all have issues.
They're
We've been
all
talking
going to
about
have
it
a
for-
public hearing.
We've been talking about it for 2 months now. Come on.
They're all going to have a public hearing on August 21st. So,
And you need to do a title search, that's it.
right.
Building department will go post,
Right,
period,
that's it.
without us.
You have to
Tomorrow.
do a title
So
search.
tomorrow they can go post.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
In
You
order
have your
to
marching orders
demolish
tomorrow.
the buildings,
that's
Thank you.
step
we need a
2.
title search.
Right.
And, you know, the order, and they have to be
Fair.
served with notice, the property owners have to be served with notice of that hearing.
Right.
Correct.
So what do you need us to do?
Yes, all
All
four.
four.
So,
get 'em.
again, Joe, it's, 101 Old Post Road, 16, oh, you have them all?
You have them?
Okay, good. Yeah.
I'll get it to you, Joe.
Beautiful.
So what do you need from us to do right now?
Again, the resolution setting a public hearing for August 21st for all four properties.
Joe
And-
clear as mud. And the title search authorization for you, correct?
Mortgage search.
2 items.
Or title search, actually.
Move.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Judith.
Jim,
Jim.
will you please make sure that the town clerk has the
I will.
correct wording? I know he's captured the spirit of it, if not more. Well, it's a little bit less than clear, that's why I keep it. But anyway, Jim, if you could follow up with the proper resolution
Yep.
next day or
Thank you.
so, okay? Next item of discussion is the memorandum of agreement with Metro North for Bank Street Railroad crossing. This arose out of the Metro North getting a grant, a federal grant, which was great because this crossing, as the Councilwoman Gatalia has been in, condition necessary for safety improvements for a while, which the railroad understood, and they kept working to get the money. They finally have gotten a significant grant to help renovate and restore sight lines, the warning system, et cetera. Jim, you've gone through the MOA. We're on the phone. Would you just summarize it, please?
So, so the MOA is between the town and Metro North. Metro North has gotten federal transportation funds to upgrade the safety provisions at the Bank Street crossing in Chelsea. As part of that, the supervisor, I believe, had a discussion with folks at Metro North, and one of the things that it will be, which is being considered as part of this, is putting sleeves under the railroad tracks as part of this improvement so that water, sewer, gas can be run to the water side, the river side of the train tracks.
I had requested that specifically because I know it's of great interest to the councilwoman to be able to service that
Yep.
now and in the future. So they
and-
had agreed conceptually. So is that covered properly in the MOA?
It is. One of the things that I had circled with John Bodendorf. What's up in the air right now is the exact number of sleeves. So the current MOA just says sleeves, but it's subject to, the town has the authority to approve the design documents. So as part of the design documents for the crossing, we would be, chiming in as far as where the sleeves would be located and how many sleeves would be installed. I also had a conversation with the attorneys for Metro North, who looped in their engineering folks regarding access while, there's improvements there. One of the things that I notified them is that that's the only access to get to that side of the tracks. So they committed to maintain emergency access to the west side of the tracks while any construction is ongoing. I also had requested that, if possible, that the construction take place outside of the summer months to provide access to the yacht club and the boat ramp. They said that they would, endeavor to do that, but basically the vagaries of federal financing will more or less probably dictate what the
We know how
construction
fast that is.
schedule is. I confirm that the town has no out-of-pockets with respect to this, so provided that the New York State Department of Transportation approve it,
Right.
which they believe they will. but this is federal transportation money that is being administered by the New York State Department of Transportation. So, if the board, wishes, there is a resolution here to approve it as written, and, it'll be an ongoing process.
Yeah. Bill, I had raised this, with respect to the sleeves, for a combination of both, the water and sewer access to the properties, but also because of the fire safety, if we can get a hydrant there, then that's going to enhance, the safety, of the fire companies coming down and putting out the fire.
So, just so the board is aware, back when, in a prior administration, we had discussions about extending water to Chelsea.
Right.
One of the areas that was being considered was extending water to the west side of the railroad tracks. But the most important, the most expensive part of that expansion would have been going under the railroad tracks. So, the installation of sleeves would make it, more cost-effective to get water to that side of the tracks.
Since they're tearing up, that's what I figured, we get the sleeves under, then also we don't have to go through the tedious process of getting new approvals.
Correct.
Out in the future. It's all
Thank you.
done in one shot.
So let's get as many sleeves as we can.
The challenge becomes that it was April 1st or April 2nd, there was a CSX 84 car trash train that became disabled on the at-grade crossing. No notification to the town, no notification to the county, no notification to any emergency services, and that train sat there blocking all access to the other side of the tracks for many, many hours. So Metro North needs to understand that if there's an incident on their tracks, I don't care if it's a Metro North train or a CSX train, as part of this dialogue we're having, they need to be forthright with the town if there's an obstruction blocking the west side of the tracks, because there was no way for any emergency services to get across those tracks to access the west side during that entire derailment is what it was, but they didn't want to use that word because the train remained upright, thank God. So that said, if we're going to be partners here, let's make sure they understand that they have to communicate when there's any sort of unusual occurrence on the tracks within the town of Wappinger.
Right. Yep. And one of the upgrades, Bill, is related to the signal system and notification. Apparently, where there was some glitch also that they didn't realize that they had that issue for a little while, from what I was told. So
at-grade crossings are very dangerous. You can read all about the situations that occur at at-grade crossings, and any additional safety, parameters that they install with this new technology would be greatly appreciated. But please communicate.
Sure. Just so the board is aware, there was discussions years back. Amtrak was looking to do a high-speed corridor from New York to Albany and eliminate all grade crossings. It seems to have died by the wayside, but back in 2010, 2011, there was discussion of that.
Well, with the MTA payroll taxes we pay in Dutchess County, they should have an elevated train track from Poughkeepsie to all the way to the city.
Okay.
Just saying.
Do we want to, since fresh in mind, want to just go with the resolution now?
Yes.
Sure. Go ahead,
Yeah, go
Councilwoman.
ahead.
Move this resolution.
Resolution 2392, resolution authorizing memorandum of agreement.
Right.
Okay?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you. The next item that we have is another one of our long-standing and favorite topics, the boat ramp. Which also we have applied on several occasions for grant applications. We have a new one that we've put together, and Scott Williams, our grant writer, has worked with us on. Tim, do you want to just summarize what we're looking at?
Right, so the LWRP was the previous applications, which was really just for a study. It really wouldn't precipitate a project out of it. Talking with Scott, he suggested the let me find it, Environmental Protection Fund.
Yep.
And basically that's a 50% match of town funds up to a maximum grant of $500,000. We've kind of gone through the estimate. It's still in draft form, but we're at about $525,000 right now. And that would be for a whole new ramp. It would be for a new retaining wall. It'd include cofferdam, temporary cofferdam, so all the work could be done in the dry. Being that it's a grant application, we figured we, go for the maximum way to do this and see how much money gets.
Without a doubt.
And I think at our last board discussion, we had a consensus that we would, make this applicable to some of our ARPA monies that we have, since the fact that there has been other communities have done that, but also, we were talking about the emergency services that the county, the sheriff's department.
Yes.
Yes.
I know Bill has emergency services response, and also the sheriff had expressed an interest in that we upgrade this ramp, then it's going to make it more accessible, more usable for
We
emergency
could get any
service.
sort of letters of endorsement
Yeah.
along those lines. We're going to need.
I'll talk with the sheriff
We're going to need
if
by
everybody's
Thursday
agreed.
because the grant
Okay.
submission is Friday.
Can Bill sign one, or his boss?
So that's a good point. There's also opportunities for port security grant funding. I just met with the Coast Guard last week about this, which now that I think about it, this is the only access point between Beacon and New Hamburg. It may be applicable for that as another option, but in the meantime, if you need letters of endorsement, I can talk to the sheriff's office because they may need to utilize that access point.
Yeah, any bit would help.
Can
You need
Scott
them by
prepare
Friday, right?
a form of letter of support, and then Bill and I can
Just
coordinate
sign
on
it.
that?
Yeah, just
I can call Scott tomorrow.
I'll text them right now.
see what we need. I mean, also, there's other agencies. I mean, my own fire department has Zodiacs that need to get in the water somewhere, and that's one of the spots that are designated for getting those in the Hudson River. So there's a number of agencies that need that access.
Every agency on letterhead would be great, whoever would use it.
All right, let's connect
By
tomorrow.
Thursday this week.
That's great. I operate best under pressure.
Okay. Do you want me to ask Scott to create a boilerplate? kind of?
Yes, ask him.
That would be
I'll
the
follow up
best,
with
and
him
send it
tomorrow as
out.
well.
Yeah,
And then they could just modify it accordingly.
Then-
exactly.
Bill,
That's
I
easier.
can work with you to make
Yeah.
sure we get the right people corralled.
Don't send me an email, text me.
No, yeah,
It's craziness this
absolutely.
week.
Yep. Tim, if we were to do this, what is the timetable? How are you looking at, what's the grants? When do the grants
This
get awarded?
probably December, I think, the way it's
Okay.
going, would be an award.
Good.
December,
11.
okay. So.
It's really needed in this area.
So this is resolution 2023-89, resolution authorizing application for a grant under Environmental Protection Fund program for Wappinger Hudson River access improvement.
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes.
I might also be able to get a letter from the Coast Guard,
Good.
Sector New York.
Anybody and everybody. The only thing, I'd be curious, and we can follow up once we get it, but what requirements, say, would the Coast Guard have above and beyond what maybe the sheriff or?
I mean, just access. I mean,
Access.
you're not, there's inflatable boats if you have to make a quick rescue. It's not easy unless you have something, somewhere
Yeah, you
to
got
get
it.
it in, right? I mean,
Right.
If that's all it is, then
yeah, I mean, the bigger boats obviously would be a challenge right there, depending on the clearance and the tide, right? But it's an access point to the Hudson River. That's valuable.
so yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, everyone. The next item, Kevin, you've been waiting patiently. Kevin Hawthorne, come and talk about the Veterans Advisory Group and updates.
Thanks, Scott.
And thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, thank you.
Hi, thanks.
The fire pit and location. During a WVA meeting this past week, we had a bit of a discussion about the fire pit that I've used Schlatt House for a couple of times. So the idea was to find a location at the town hall. It would be a permanent location. This is just an idea at the time. and it's just something for the board to think about. I've spoken to Howie Prager on a number of occasions about the fire pit, and we're almost out of discussion because he just leaves it to me. But I'm leaving it to the town board to figure a best place for that. Schlatt House is going to be under construction eventually, so it doesn't belong there. Having it here at Town Hall is a really, really good idea because it would be part of our heritage. The next thing is banner issues. Cost had been really excessive. There was a $25 increase for banners going from $99 to $124. There was a $35 decrease for hardware. I drilled the 3/8-inch mounting holes in the banner brackets at home so that we don't have to use some extra hardware to put them up. Banner design, we currently use template number 16, which is your second sheet. I had originally gone for number 3, but I was voted down. Now, Beacon and Hopewell and Fishkill and Wappingers Falls and the town of Fishkill, town of Poughkeepsie, are more difficult to read than our banners. And I stopped and looked at a town of East Fishkill banner, and I looked at a town of Fishkill banner, and they are indeed more difficult to read. I think in a couple of occasions they have the round picture, which is difficult to have a title underneath, and it's impossible to read. Ours are kind of plain. I don't like the fact that they are so plain, and red, white, and blue is only at the top of the banner. However, they are pretty clear. The photos aren't really that hot because none of them, almost, are color. A color photo is very, very good, like in Officer Sweeney. It's a very, very good banner on Old Hopewell. But I don't know how to make the photos any better. But what you're not really looking at is the photo. You're looking at the name. Now, generally, I put, like in my case, I put AQF2, Kevin Hathorn. The AQF2 could go down alongside of U.S. Navy. And that would make it possible to use more space for my name, for anybody's name. Now, when you go down Old Hopewell, you get to Cedar Hill. There's a couple of banners on the same pole. One of them, I believe, is Santa Sardo. That's impossible to read because of all the letters and the lack of space. So I think that's something that we're going to have to work on. Looking at HGH 003 on that second sheet, it's an awful lot of room there. That's pretty cool. It's got flag on either side of the photo, and the name can be as large as you want it to be. That's a pretty neat looking banner. So that's something for later on. Now, the suggestion was made to only put the banners up once a year. In other words, have a time period for taking the orders. We're going to have to work that out because I can't figure out myself exactly when is a really good time to take the orders. But it is reasonable to only put them up once.
I think one of the things we were talking about is the timing on that was based on when we would start putting them up. So if you put them up starting May, we'd have to find out how long it takes the vendor to actually be able to produce that and then back it up and say your cutoff date is, say, March. So that's what we kind of talked about when we met with Angela, too.
Yeah, I can take the orders all year long, and the people can understand that their banners will only get put up in May. So that's not a problem. I can take them all year long with the understanding that the people will be patient. And, by and large, they've been really patient because this last order took me probably 3 months. The order before that was 6 months. People get a little randy because I've cashed their checks and they don't see anything, any fruits of their labors.
They can't expect you to be putting them up the whole time. I mean,
say again?
They can't expect you to be putting them up the entire time frame. I mean, you take the order and then they'll be up prior to Memorial Day each year or around that time. Now that you have such a large number, it's just, in my opinion, it's unreasonable to expect you and the small group of people you have to continuously build upon this for the entire season. That's
Right.
crazy.
That's why we want to have a cutoff, because otherwise it isn't possible.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, you have a good problem, you have a lot of banners.
Yeah, we do. We're fortunate, though. We have a really large area. So we've got a number of poles that are usable, like going out on Myers Corners. We're going past Brothers Road pretty soon. Sergeant Parmentier has a lot of poles. So we do have an awful lot of places where I think the town can reach them. Now, Mike Sheehan and I were talking about a bucket truck. That did not work out, and I don't see how it's going to. So, we're just going to be able to use the poles that we can. Now, going out New Hamburg, well, there's bunches of poles. So we're good probably for another few years. And then we're going to have to say, well, can't do any more. So it was suggested to me to try another banner vendor. I tried somebody in Jersey, and he was telling me that the banner brackets that I use, the hardware that I use, is made in China, that his is made in America, so it's more expensive. But I have no complaints with our Chinese or Asian or whatever banners, hardware we have, because it's held up really well. So I'm going to stay with the banner producer that we use now, because he did give me a break on the hardware. So the shipping is a problem. It's always been high. It's always going to stay high.
We're going to talk about that. I think this is something at the next meeting, which should be soon. Many of these things we can iron out and come to the board and say, this is what the committee has decided. I think this is a good update. But again, we can discuss different looks of the banners. We can also discuss, shipping, because we have a lot of options. So I think the meeting that we had was very informative, and there's a lot of work to be done, but I think we need to reconvene to net this out, and then come back to the board.
Of course.
With some other things.
Right, that's what I look forward to.
So, but thank you.
Sure.
For everything.
Signs from the 5K race, a lot of them were not displayed. I didn't have the time to pick them up from Dutchess Pro Print or Fast Print, whoever it was. So I have a lot of banners that never went up, and the banner owner, not the banners, but the signs, they never went up at the 5K. People paid a lot of money for those. So I propose that when we have our carnival at Schlatt House, we're going to try and have a veterans tent with an awful lot of information, because I know that the people in the town are really looking for veterans information for the Vietnam veterans and the Gulf War veterans who really don't know what's available to them. So I plan on having a veterans presence in a tent. So I'd like to put the signs around there, like Bettini and the new place on Osborne Hill, stuff like that. So I would just like to be able to put those signs around. I don't want to pepper the whole entire area, but a pretty concentrated area, so people can see those signs and the donors can feel as though they're getting the money's worth.
We can put some of these signs, like you said, we owe it to the donors, but we can start putting some of these signs even around Town Hall, outside, over on Slaughter House where the 9/11 memorial is, and let people see them.
Terrific.
We can just put them out there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We, like I said, we received a lot of donations for those signs, and at the same time we had the 5K registration, we received a lot more donations. What I want to do is I want to address thank you letters to the main person that we interfaced with, and that will make an awful lot of people smile when they get those letters that are addressed specifically to them, like the young lady who runs the, I believe it's the Mercedes. I don't remember her name, but she's been really graceful, I should say. Pavers on the west side of Schlatt House, I'm hoping that we can get them put in on the west side. Going to keep on trying. We've got a landscaper who's going to do it when his work slows down. We've got all of the parts, all of the supplies, so we should be able to do that.
If you need help with putting up the banners, that were used for the 5K walk, I'm sure we can get a crew together and pick a day to put these out. I don't expect you to do all of this.
Well, there's only about 15 or 20 banner signs.
There's signs. They're normal
great.
political signs.
Okay, so you can handle it? I mean, if you need help, let us know. We'll get a contingent together and
I'll give
put
you a
them
call.
out there, right? I mean,
I'll give you a call.
yeah. Okay,
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we're good then.
Yeah.
And thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Good job.
The next item is number 7, acquisition of utility easements for Wildwood Sewer District connections to Tri Municipal Sewer Plant. This has been an item that we've had numerous discussions because of the grant that we got years ago, and we have to now really execute against it. So Jim, would you just give the board a summary and the public a summary of what we're talking about in this resolution number 11?
Sure. So with respect to the Wildwood Sewer Plant, New York State DEC has changed the permit requirements. They've increased them, so the existing plant does not meet with the current standards. The engineers to the town over the years have done studies to determine the most cost-effective way of either replacing or rehabilitating the plant. The determination was that the most cost-effective way to do it would be to replace the existing sewer treatment, or put in a new pump station near the location of the existing sewage treatment plant to convey the sewage from the Wildwood Sewer District along what's called a force main through New Hackensack, along New Hackensack Road, and then down to the back entrance to the Wildwood, or the Woodhill Green condominiums, and then along through Woodhill Green out to Route 9, and then under Route 9 to connect into the Village of Wappinger Falls system, and thus depositing the wastewater into the tri-municipal sewer system. We've received grants from EFC for that. We have a construction schedule which is pending. The CPL has prepared drawings of the construction work that needs to take place. And associated with that, we need to obtain some easements across private property. The largest easement being across Woodhill Green condominiums. We had discussions with the condominium management company, and there's been some reluctance to grant an easement. It's not necessarily clear if it's related to the easement itself or in essence, potentially connecting to the sewer system in the future. They had expressed, some concern with respect to cost. Granting the easement really doesn't have much cost with respect to Woodhill Green. So, in order to move the project along, New York State eminent domain procedure law allows a municipality to commence proceedings, eminent domain proceedings against private property owners to obtain easements for public purposes such as the installation of sewer mains. Most of these, with the easement through Woodhill Green condominiums would be through basically the parking areas and driveway or roadways. We're not looking at demolishing or acquiring any buildings. Basically, the easement would be acquired, the infrastructure would be installed, and then the property would be restored to the condition prior to, if not better than the installation, before the installation, I should say. There's also a number of properties along New Hackensack Road, which we would require a small easement out toward the right-of-way to put the water and sewer main in to make the location, straighter and less complicated. Typically, in those cases, the cost of acquiring the easements are relatively modest in that they would be within a setback where nobody's permitted to build anything anyway.
Do we actually have to purchase the land if they do an easement across the properties? When you say it's a small cost to us, what does that small cost mean? Is it
So under the
$1,000,
eminent, so the
$10,000?
procedure under the eminent domain law is that basically the first way you work things out is to try to get cooperation from the property owner whereby, they grant an easement to the town at no cost. Sometimes people will grant the easement with the knowledge that in the future they may connect to the sewer main. If the property owners are in the district, the argument we make is, hey, you're just making it more expensive for the town and, raising your costs with respect to this project. But basically, with respect to the eminent domain procedures law, if you can't get the agreement of the property owner, there's a process that we have to go through, which is to obtain an appraisal from an appraiser as to the value of the property to be acquired. You then present that appraisal to the property owner. If they agree with it, you sign documents and they grant you the property. If they don't, then you begin condemnation proceedings in Supreme Court. We're not looking to acquire fee title, meaning we just want an easement, so we're not, the property owner would ultimately own the property underneath, still own the property underneath, so for purposes of setbacks, the setbacks are not changing, the area of the lot for purposes of building is not changing. The only thing is that we would be acquiring an easement for purposes of the sewer main.
And the same process would work if you had to go through Woodhill Greens as well?
Correct.
Okay.
So, and basically, the less disturbance that's contemplated in the property, the less the damage award would be by the court, should we ever get there. We've begun, with respect to the extension of the water line to Chelsea, we had to acquire a number of easements. We started eminent domain proceedings on a couple of properties, but they were all resolved. So, in the town, we've had, I'd like to say that the residents of the town, with respect to, granting easements to the town, has always been very cooperative, and, they've looked out for the good of the community. So I'm hoping that, knock wood, our track record continues. So the resolution 22398 is authorization for me to begin to retain an appraiser should the need arise, and also work with CPL to grant create the easement maps that are required for each of the individual property owners.
I'll move it.
Time pressure because of the consent order and need it. So you move.
Yeah, I'll move it.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none.
So, Tim, just a quick question.
Go ahead.
So we have roughly, I think the cost was a couple years ago, and it's about $5.6 million. I think we have currently about $2.5 million worth of grant money. This would be something in addition to that in order to be able to hook up Woodhill Greens, et cetera. Are we still pursuing getting additional grant money to help out the residents over there? Because the cost is going to be astronomical.
There was a letter during COVID that the town was awarded the WQIP
Correct.
grant, so I think that was an additional
2.2?
Yeah, so I mean,
Something like that.
and those funds are only strictly able to be expunged for the construction phase of the project. So we don't want to jeopardize losing that.
Right.
We have letters of acknowledgement that the town did qualify for that. So I think this is a necessary start to get the process going.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
So the bond resolution that was adopted back in 2020, I believe, is net,
February of 2020.
is gross, does not include the, the grant monies, so.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if we got any more additional
Right.
grant money.
We hadn't worked on
And
it.
I
I know
believe,
the
there was
supervisor's
also
working on it.
discussions of applying some ARPA money toward,
Yes. Well, we
At
had
least a portion
singled
of
that
this
out
money.
as
Yeah.
part of it, some of the ARPA monies, which is a legitimate use. So we do have some of that cushion once we get the final numbers, get this done. Okay, thanks, everyone. The next item is number 8. This is a grant application for Midpoint Park. This is for the improvements with the I&I. We had previously gotten a study grant, that was, I think, a $100,000 grant, which CPL had worked on. So now we're looking at some additional grant money for, making additional improvements up there. Tim, do you want to summarize for the
Right,
board?
so on our Saturday workshop, I did a presentation of draft numbers of the conclusions of the EPG for Midpoint. And basically, we had 3 alternatives. One was to replace the wastewater treatment plant with a new, more modern one. The second was to send it to Tri-Muni, and the third was to look at sending it to East Fishkill. And, the budget numbers were 9.7 for the million for the wastewater treatment plant replacement, 16.7 million for the Tri-Muni hookup, and 24.4 million for the East Fishkill hookup. Normally, the process is we finalize this report. We're in conjunction with the town to make our final recommendation to DEC on which alternative, but we realize there needs to be further discussion and evaluation on your behalf, before we jump to that. But as part of our investigation, we had to basically clean and TV the pipes throughout the subdivision, and regardless of what alternative is chosen, we need to address some of the older pipes with this I&I collection system improvement program. So this is a good qualifying thing to keep the town's kind of hat in the ring. We're under the notice of violation.
So keep us in good standing, basically.
And the notice of violation, consent decree.
And we did vet it with DEC, like, look, we haven't formalized our conclusion yet, but this needs to be done no matter what, and they concurred that,
Correct.
Just happens to be my development.
Yeah.
What was the cost again? It was 24 million East Fishkill connection, and what was the cost for Tri-Muni?
16.7.
16.7 in rough numbers, and then 9.7 to replace the wastewater treatment plant for more modern.
Thank you.
So I make a motion that we approve this one.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you. Okay, and so,
That was resolution 90.
Tim, that's resolution 2023-90. Tim, you'll talk with Scott, to get that finalized. Okay.
Template for the letter.
Okay, very good, thanks. Okay, so next item is item number 9, Mart's Pickleball and Tennis Court resurfacing. Al?
Yeah, so I'll talk to this one. So right now, what we've got about $60,000 allocated to the courts over at March. There's 2 tennis courts on by the barn, and there's 4 courts over by the recreation center there. So, and there's 3 pickleball courts, 1 tennis court there. The proposal for the $60,000 was to basically power wash all those and repave them. With this proposal tonight for $29,334, what we like to do is, we've been able, working with Craftco, the vendor, to be able to make, where we have the 4 pickleball courts, we can make it into 12. So it's basically a little extra resurfacing that you have to do. Steve Frazier, we were hoping he was going to be able to dig the holes for us, but it looks like Mike Sheehan's going to be able to, because he has the equipment. So we've got to basically do the schematics for that, basically redo it, so that you can set it up for 12 pickleball courts. But what it would do is make us one of the premier pickleball courts in Dutchess County, similar to what they have up at Quiet Cove in Poughkeepsie. And again, it's $29,334. I think it's a good opportunity for us. People use it. I've been there many, many times, and I can tell you there's a waiting list of people trying to get in and use the courts. They usually see 40 to 50 people there, so it's very well used. So I think it's a great opportunity for us.
And planning for the future. I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I make a motion that we approve, unless there's any questions from any board members.
Nope, I second it.
Yeah, this is resolution 2023-95. Motion
Correct.
second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Al. The next item is number 10, discussion of pilot agreement for solar projects. And this is resolution number 10. Jim, would you like to summarize?
So, under real property tax law 489, I believe, solar panels, solar energy installations are exempt from taxation. This pilot agreement is with respect to the solar panels themselves. This does not affect the underlying tax status of the real property. This is just for any increase in value associated with the installation of the solar panels on the property. Similarly, if a homeowner puts solar panels on his roof, his or her roof, the installation of the solar panels should not increase the assessment of the house because of that installation. Because it is exempt from taxation, the town has actually the developer can propose a pilot agreement to the town. Should the agreement not be approved, basically, there's a proceeding where they can, try to go forward with respect to getting it approved. But it's, the pilot agreement is between the three major taxing jurisdictions, town, county, and school district. As part of the packet here, the Wappinger Central School District has approved the pilot agreement for this project. In talking to the attorneys for the project, there is still negotiations ongoing with the county, and this is the proposal for the town. With respect to the pilot agreement is for a period of 15 years, which is the exemption that is granted under the real property tax law for the solar installations. This project is approximately 2 megawatts. The proposal has has proposed to pay a pilot of $2,700 per megawatt, as it's 2 years. I'm sorry, it's 2 megawatts. So the proposal under the tax for the proposal under the pilot agreement is $5,400, split pro rata between the taxing entities that are noted. With respect to the fire district, the ambulance district, and the library district, those entities, technically, I guess they're benefit assessments, so they're not covered by the exemption. So though the taxation for fire, ambulance, and library is not affected by the exemption, they would be taxed as normal. The town board back in 2018 had approved a pilot agreement for the solar farm installed on
9D.
9D. In that agreement, which was adopted as Resolution 2018-165, the pilot agreement in that case was $6,500 per megawatt with a 2% escalator, which is also proposed here. In this case, it's $2,700. My understanding is that, there's some changes within the economics of the industry. But again, this is a proposal. Should the town board wish to, make a counteroffer, it certainly is free to do so.
Is this a bigger plot of land than what's on 9D?
The proposal on 9, so the pilots were based on the amount of generating capacity. In the 9D project, it was similar. It was 1.995 megawatts. This is 2 megawatts. So you're basically talking about the same project.
And they paid how much?
They paid 60, I just had it here, 6,500 per megawatt.
And that was how long ago?
That was 5 years ago.
And they're only paying 54?
The offer is 2,700
27
per megawatt.
per megawatt.
So, now, having said that, at the time the town board adopted that resolution, the school district had not signed
Correct.
on. In this case, the school district has signed on.
Signed on to it now.
So, but again, each pilot agreement between the jurisdictions is separate and apart from the other.
So in this particular agreement, right, pilot starts off at roughly 5,400. About 4,200 goes to the school and roughly 700 each to the county and the town, correct?
Yep.
And then it escalates for the next 15 years, you said at 2%.
It's a 2%, right, increase per year.
But both of them do that, 90 and this. Yeah, so there's no difference. So we can counter and say 65 for them too, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if they, that's,
Well, they could say is no.
right.
I propose that we,
Have there been any changes in the subsidies, that NYSERDA and so forth? That's where
I
probably
believe that's
the difference.
but 90 is paying the same thing,
But they,
even with those
But they
changes.
had locked in, back in 2018, there were much
That's
more
life.
generous.
That's life, right? It's life in the big lane. So
So,
I propose 65.
6,500?
can go in with,
Fine,
They could say
I
no.
have
Fine by
no
me.
problem.
Yeah. Jim? Bill?
I have no objection to the attorney to the town negotiating for the best possible return for the town.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree.
Thank you.
I mean, right now, so
So,
it's
Jim?
510, I mean, I think of, so 65 over, if that was agreeable, you're looking at change from 510 to probably about 12.
So for Resolution 2023-97.
We should table it.
Who you want to, I was going to say, because you can negotiate, and then we'll come back and, the August 21st.
The other provisions are pretty standard and similar to what was approved for,
Okay, so
I'll
do
make
I
a
have a
motion
motion
to table it. I'll make a motion to table.
Okay. Okay, motion, do I have a second?
A second,
Oh,
sorry.
go ahead.
So council is here, could
okay.
address, with your permission, she
Sure,
can address
please.
some of the issues.
Did you guys vote on that?
No, not yet.
I'm sorry,
Discussion
you
before we
are-
vote.
Hi, my name is Alicia Legland with Hodgson Russ. I represent the applicant for the solar project that you are discussing, the pilot for tonight. So I'm here to answer any questions. If you do have any questions about the pilot and you'd like to discuss it, I am here for that. I know you've been in communications with my colleague, Henry Sommerfeld. He couldn't make it tonight, so I'm here. But if you do have any questions, please let me know.
So, what about this point, though, with respect to the increased pilot amount, 6,500?
Yeah, so if that's from 5 years ago, I mean, we run the models to do the proposed amounts. They change over time, obviously. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. It's also based on the property tax assessment for the property itself. If the property is it's a different property, if they're assessed differently, the amounts are different.
I still would like to negotiate.
So, just a question, this project is located where? This particular one?
Myers Corners.
It's Rogers.
Oh, this is the one opposite Rogers?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
Rogers'
so,
old property.
all right, this is the one with the elevated panels?
Yes,
that-
yes.
All right, yes, I mean,
Myers Corners.
okay, I mean, I understand that this is kind of a different type of project than the previous traditional solar field. I mean, this is one that we discussed at length with respect to the innovative approach to growing underneath the panels that move. So with respect to the pilot, again, I have no objection to the attorney negotiating with the applicant for a fair and equitable number. I just don't want it to be arbitrary. So based on, as you just mentioned, based on assessments, whatever, put it on paper. I certainly have no objection to entertaining that, as long as there's some methodology.
Okay.
And that wasn't shared with you previously? How it was
No, we have the method, well, we have, the breakdown of how it was done.
Right.
But I don't think we had necessarily the backup of how I guess, basically, if you could address, and I'll send you the information regarding the project that was approved in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, you can address some of the concerns of the town board. Because I had a conversation with, Henry regarding, I know that, like I said, the incentives and, some of the tax implications have certainly changed, so.
Well, that's, Jim, you go and discuss
Yep.
with her
Yeah,
and
and come back
Henry,
to
and then
us.
come back to us with itemization and comparison.
We have a motion on already to
Motion to
table it,
table.
so we got a
Second.
first. and-
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, motion passed. So then
Thank you.
you work with Jim.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Jim, the Nature Preserve tenancy agreement.
So Jim and I had a conversation on this. So this is about collecting the $170,000 fee, whether it's from the HOA or the residents, et cetera. So again, we talked about the hookup today. It's still hooked up to the fire hydrant out by Hughesville. And the idea is to get this water over to, a permit connection. But one of the things we're looking at doing is making sure we get, the town's money up front on this. And I think, Jim, I don't know if you want to, elaborate on that, but I think that's where we're coming from this one. So how do we get that? And if we talk to the owners of the property, HOA, et cetera, because again, it's split. Some of it's condo related, some of it's house related, right?
Yeah, so, as we had a discussion previously, and the board had approved the agreement. Right now, the water connection is proposed to be with the HOA because the HOA used the water plant. They had their own water plant and they were responsible for the water plant itself. With respect to, the connection that is being made, it's being made, do you know the status on that, Tim?
I don't know if the work's been done yet or not, temporary.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I think temporary is still in place.
Yes.
Last I had heard that, there was, they were in the
still in
process of trying to get somebody to do the connection, and
Well, I know Mike Tremper was involved in helping with the T connection.
what was that?
Mike Tremper was involved in helping them with the T connection.
Yeah.
So I know they owe him some money too as well, about 10 grand. So again, we're just trying to, dot the i's, cross the t's, et cetera, and move forward because they do need the water. So we can't shut them off. That would be irresponsible. But again, Bill's got a great point where Hughesville Fire Department may need that water, and at some point in time, we're going to have to do, a more permanent solution.
Yeah, so, with respect to, the board, we had, the agreement is drafted such that there's, an upfront payment of, the buy-in fee for the property. One of the things that we had looked at was this would connect to the water line that was extended out to service the DEP site in Chelsea. DEP had paid the buy-in fees for people in Chelsea, but they did not pay for other people along the route. So anyone who connects to the water main would have to pay a buy-in fee to the United Wappinger Water District, which I believe currently is $3,200 per single bedroom house, or townhouse in this case. The board certainly has the ability to come up with an arrangement so that that money can be paid, other than a lump sum. The board has the ability to, put it into a water bill or,
So they approached you at all with a potential solution if they don't have the $170K up front? Like, is there a payment plan they're looking on? Is there?
Yeah, I have not heard anything from, the HOA. I have not been contacted. I don't know. I have not seen an executed agreement on their
So how do we move forward and make sure
Right.
that, there's an agreement in place? Because we were able to, through the supervisor last month, get the easement agreement in there, so why can't we get this taken care of as well?
My understanding is the HOA is determining financial, their financial ability to do this. That's
I
my
know, but
understanding.
there's got to be a certain amount of time they're given, and then after that, I mean, you can't go on months and months. You've got to come up with a solution. They've got to come up with
We
one.
got
Let's
to
give
have a
'em
deadline.
Let's give them a deadline.
I don't know that that's an action of the town board. I think that needs to be done through an executed agreement with the attorney to the town and the supervisor. My understanding, speaking to HOA personnel, because I've asked about it, is they're discussing the financing. I don't know the details of it. I know that it is their intent to permanently connect.
I
Jim,
guess
can you
the question
pursue
is,
them,
what would they do? What would they do if they didn't have this potential hookup here from the fire hydrant? They'd be screwed, right?
What would they do? They'd have to truck water in.
Right, which is very expensive to do, so,
Jim, can
We
you
should
reach
give them
out
a
to them,
time
please,
period.
and get a checkpoint?
I'm not sure why Ward 2 and Ward 4 are involved in this, to be honest with you. This is a Ward 1 matter. We can discuss it offline. This doesn't need to be discussed in front of the town board with respect to the situation there. We had a whole open forum on this with the HOA members right here. We gave them the options. We explained how important it was that their buy-in fee be met. And my understanding is the HOA is meeting to determine how they're going to be able to do that. I'm also under the impression that the town gave them the ability to spread this cost out over X number of months or years in order to meet that buy-in. So I'm just confused on why Ward 4 and Ward 2 are so interested in this. It's not a matter for your wards.
it's a matter for the town.
I disagree.
Well, it's a matter for the town.
I disagree.
Well,
This is a situation that
You have the right to do that. You have the right to disagree. I'm not saying you
you're
don't.
elected by the people that live in your wards.
Yes.
These are my constituents.
You're right.
And they are dealing with a challenging matter. And I don't think that it's serving anyone by bringing this up here to set a time limit or set some sort of stipulations when there needs to be an executed agreement in place for them to finance this. They're in a very difficult situation right now. They basically have a situation where their wells are failing. So from a public safety standpoint, we have allowed them to connect to the water line that runs by their property. That's an emergency connection. That's what we're doing. We're facilitating that need. And that's where we stand right now.
You're right. However, if this happens in my ward or in your ward, we want to be able to understand how we're going to handle it.
It would be handled in the same way.
Well, I think it's important to have a checkpoint when bills need to be paid.
Okay, are
That's all
they
I'm
not being
asking.
charged for the water?
Yes,
They're being charged for the water.
Okay, then that's good.
Okay, and we've known that since the last discussion. I'm not sure where this idea that this particular group of homeowners is getting something that others can't get. That's what I'm hearing here. They are paying for the water based on the average use per day. That's what's happening right now. There's nothing going on here that hasn't happened in the past when there is a well failure, especially when you have a town water line crossing the property. So that's where we stand right now. Just, if you have a question about an item in Ward 1, I would certainly appreciate a phone call before the meeting. We're not going to put discussion items on from another council member who doesn't even cover that area. That's not appropriate, number one. I've been discussing this issue with these residents in this HOA. I know many of them personally, and certainly to put it on the town board meeting from a council member from another ward as if there's some sort of wrongdoing going on is totally inappropriate.
I don't think anybody's saying there's anything wrong, but they have not been billed, just so you know that. We just verified it.
They have what?
They have not been billed yet.
What do you mean not been billed?
They haven't been charged for the water they've been using.
Okay, they're being charged for the water based on the average use. Jim, is that correct?
I don't know if a bill's going out. Anyway, I got your point, Bill.
But,
No sense to belabor it. I got your
let's not
point.
belabor it anymore. Discuss offline, and we'll double check. I mean, there's no resolution, it's just a matter of discussing.
There's certain situations here where if you have a question about something that's going on and someone on this town board represents constituents in a specific area, pick up the phone. Let's not put agenda items on here to bring things out to the public when the questions can be answered ahead of time.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to our resolutions that we haven't addressed. There's 3 HR ones, and before getting into those, let me just, we go to Resolution 2023-91. We need to table this. This is a resolution for the fees and fines. We adjourned the board meeting, we adjourned the hearing, so we just need to table that resolution.
I'll move to table it.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor to table? Aye. Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. Okay, that's tabled. Okay, the next item, then we have 3 HR resolutions. I've invited HR Director Jessica Barry here, and so let's address all 3 of them, continuously. So item number 1 is Resolution 2023-88. This is a resolution appointing seasonal groundskeepers. I see Steve's here. Jessica, why don't you summarize, what's involved in this, and then if we need backup from Steve, he can speak to it.
This is the seasonal labor or seasonal, because there was no...
Seasonal groundskeepers, yes.
I believe it's seasonal labor.
Okay, the title of it says groundskeepers. Okay.
Sorry about
Well,
that.
actually, I believe they are groundskeepers.
No, there is a resolution for groundskeepers, but there's also a resolution for seasonal laborers. It was just appointing seasonal laborers.
Okay, because in the past, we had done seasonal groundskeepers.
Okay.
So this is Resolution 2023-88. The town board determined the hiring seasonal employees in the buildings and ground to assist with repairs and maintenance of town buildings. And then it has 3 individuals named as seasonal groundskeeper. 3 different people at different rates in the same resolution, 2023-88.
Yeah, in the discussions that we've had previously with Steve, the groundskeeper title is more consistent with the job duties. The laborer positions are actually more of a highway department position. So the groundskeeper positions give the flexibility of, maintaining the grounds, mowing lawns, and then also doing minor repairs and things to buildings themselves.
So Jessica, what does
So I'm
county
sorry, I
rules?
thought there was 2 resolutions going, 2 separate ones. There was one for senior groundskeeper and groundskeeper, and then one
there's
for...
one resolution for seasonal, and then there's one resolution for permanent.
Yes, the seasonal was supposed to be seasonal labor. That's the title that's with the Dutchess County Human Resources right now, so I can't change that. They were hired as seasonal laborers. I believe it's actually down to just 1 seasonal laborer. There were 2.
Yeah, all I'm saying is the resolution that I have before us is 2023-88, and it says, town hereby appoints individual as seasonal groundskeeper. The second one is individual as seasonal groundskeeper. And then there's a third one as seasonal groundskeeper.
Wasn't there a new one, though?
Is there a new one?
Yeah, they
Okay,
gave
this
us
is
a new one
packet.
because
No, that's for the permanent.
That's for the permanent
Yeah.
one.
Joe didn't get that in.
So what-
In a package.
That was in the packet,
Okay.
but it was missed when it was
Okay,
Right.
but
the same.
what is this one?
88 is the one around.
Yes, the
Okay.
3 groundskeepers.
Right.
Yes,
And then 101 was the one that made it.
okay.
So with respect to the title, for years, there were groundskeepers that had been appointed, in the past. And, while Dutchess County has, the positions as laborers, the better job title based on the duties is groundskeeper. Both of those positions are in the labor class. So, there's no hiring off a list. I think, if they're currently in the, one of the things that the permanent resolution, there was an MOA that was adopted by the town board at the last meeting in June regarding establishing salaries for head groundskeeper and groundskeeper. And, you know, the seasonal employees are more or less, Steve, correct, doing the same job duties?
Our seasonal employees do similar duties, but they're basically used in the
Grass.
Yeah, the ground maintenance program. In the past, we've always had seasonal laborers. We haven't, they haven't been as seasonal groundskeepers. I'm not sure, I don't think we have those titles assigned to us as seasonal groundskeepers. So these are, they're in the budget as seasonal laborers, and I think there's a typo here with the actual title of the job. It should read seasonal laborer. They do similar work, but they are dedicated to the maintenance of the parks and such.
So Jessica, what is the correct title from Dutchess County? Labor?
Yes.
Okay, so all these three should be labor
Yes.
under the resolution, so it needs to be amended to read labor instead of groundskeeper. That's my point.
Yes, and the rates are correct otherwise. And if we went with groundskeeper, we'd have to change the rate to what the groundskeeper resolution was the last
Okay.
time you talked about groundskeeper.
So Resolution 2023-88 needs to be amended to read laborer for the three positions instead of groundskeeper, correct? Everything else in this resolution stays as presented, correct?
Correct.
Jim?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions with respect to these three positions for this resolution? And the title of it also needs to be
Now, I
labor.
guess, Steve, how many do we have left out of the three?
Seasonal laborers, we still speaking about?
Well, yeah, because we have, so there's three people noted, one of whom, Christopher Cato, I guess, had resigned.
Right.
But
We have two positions filled now that will remain filled after tonight.
Thomas Johnson and Ethan Reskout.
Correct.
Okay. So the third person on here, Christopher Cato,
Is not.
has resigned. So
Okay.
it's basically, this is a resolution.
So item number 3 comes out.
Well, no, it stays in because
But
we
he
need
resigned.
to
Okay.
retroactively
I
approve him
see.
for 1 day's pay.
Okay. Okay. So the resolution now is amended to reflect labor rather than groundskeeper is okay. Jessica?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion? It's clear as mud.
So I'm confused because we have two different, so who are the three people that we're looking? Is it Richard, David, and Joseph? Or is it, because Tom's not there anymore?
But he was never appointed for the season, even though it was back in April. I don't think he was ever added to a resolution.
So we need to legally
I believe so.
appoint him. Was our discussion, that we need to do that, and even though he isn't here now.
So the resolution as corrected should say exactly what it says, but replace groundskeeper with laborer. Is that correct?
In 4 spots, yes.
I'll move with the correction.
Okay. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays or abstentions?
Hang on 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, if there's no nays or abstentions.
Yeah, it's clear as mud.
Then we have the permanent one, Al. Yes. Which we can address next.
So what are they, Steve, what are they going to do different today than, tomorrow versus today if they're going to get promoted? What are they doing?
I don't understand your question.
So we're giving them all raises, correct?
Right.
And we're changing titles, correct?
Correct.
So my question is, versus what they're doing today, what are they going to be doing tomorrow that,
As I explained at the previous meeting, they will be able to perform the building repair duties through the off-season when they're not doing the grounds maintenance. So that frees them, it allows them to do the work that I need them to do through the winter months.
So they're going to do like small mechanics, laundry mechanics, what kind of stuff can they do?
Well, they'll assist the maintenance mechanic with his projects and working on the project list. But prior to this, because of their job title, they weren't permitted to do that.
So, how are you changing your vote to?
I thought
nay or
this had been
abstain?
approved the last
Well,
time around.
Yeah, that was. This is a resolution, just confirming.
So 88 was approved. What's the one we're discussing right now?
Correct. Yes.
Is there another resolution that we're
There's
deliberating?
101, I believe. Jessica, do you have that?
That's why I'm,
I don't know. So 101 is a permanent employee, correct, Jessica? And Steve, why don't you describe that, whether or not we go ahead with that resolution or not, we need to
Which
get a better
position
understanding.
are we speaking of? I don't have the resolution in
So
front of me.
this is for promoting Richard Meadow to senior groundskeeper
Okay, so,
at an hourly rate of $22.56 per hour.
Yeah.
And then promoting David Pilon to groundskeeper and Joseph
Velders.
Velders to groundskeeper as well.
Correct.
okay, so what is the question that
Well,
we're going to have
we
answered?
don't have that resolution in front of us, so the
Okay.
question is to, that resolution.
Actually, that's the one I was looking, I have that one.
Okay, I don't see it, but anyway, I know there was a 101. Yeah, I just don't. So we
The
approve.
senior groundskeeper essentially is going to be a foreman of the mowing operation. And again, that takes that off of my shoulders. He'll report to me any deficiencies that he has in manpower or equipment. And, outside of that, then he'll make sure that the work that we expect to be done for the week is getting done. And again, come to me with any issues that need to be resolved. That takes that burden off of me to focus on the bigger projects. And he gets, a small stipend for taking that
And
position.
Jessica, you cleared that with Dutchess County, those titles, right? And that process has been cleared. We discussed that.
I thought that position had been approved at the previous meeting.
There was an MOA that was approved, but
Correct.
nobody was promoted.
Right, no, nobody was
Yes.
assigned to the position.
Correct.
But the theory of moving forward with
Yes,
this.
but we're now specifically
Right,
dealing
we're
with
assigning specific people
individuals.
to those positions.
So is it still clear as mud?
So would this be Resolution 2023-101?
Yes. Yep. For these promotions.
Yeah, I'm okay with these.
I'll move it.
I second it.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Steve. So the next HR, Jessica, you're not out of the woods yet. This is Resolution 2023-93. This is establishing officially the title of Assistant Recreation Director and appointing that individual. We've discussed that at the previous meeting, and this is the formal resolution for that. So you want to
Yes, I
just
believe
summarize?
at one point you talked about it being a rec assistant, but it was supposed to be the recreation director's right hand. So I talked to Dutchess County Human Resources, and we had it changed to assistant recreation director. And I think the idea is, again, that she's going to be pretty much the right hand of the recreation director.
So the only question I have, is there a test coming up for this individual?
It's October.
Okay. So is this like a provisional appointment?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And the
What's-
compensation range was what we had discussed before,
That's
and
fine.
within that, I kept it well within that range.
What's the resolution number?
93?
93, 2023-93, Bill.
I move it.
Did you move it?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Bill, do you want more time to look at it?
I got it. For whatever reason, no offense, Joe, this packet is just difficult to navigate. It's not your fault. It's just there's
Well, what
a,
happened is as the discussion items came on, you approved.
Yes, yeah, and that's what I've been trying to go
So
through.
it takes
Yeah,
complete what I said.
yeah.
It's okay.
But I've been trying to follow it. We got it. So
I found it. It took me 5 minutes.
There's a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Then the last HR, I think, based, if I'm following all my notes right, is Resolution 2023-96. This is a resolution promoting person to deputy court clerk. Right, Jessica? So I want to just briefly summarize that one.
Yep, so this is moving one of the clerk to the justices to the deputy court clerk, which will then open up a clerk to the justice position. But the justices both decided that this is the person they want.
Move it.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Now, the next resolution that I have that is maybe next to last is Resolution, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, 2023-99. And this is a resolution authorizing application of tri-municipal sewer, commission for a grant under NYS EFC Engineering Planning Grant for Regional Chlorine Elimination Study. Jim, do you want to just summarize this one?
So based on the thumbnail sketch of what I have,
Yep.
New York State DEC is increasing the chlorine effluent discharge levels, lowering the chlorine effluent discharge levels permitted to be discharged into the Hudson River. And my understanding is, this may be wrong, but the levels in the Hudson River are going to be lowered to that for creeks that are tributary to the Hudson River,
Correct.
which have a lower standard. So what that will require is that tri-municipal put in a treatment system that will reduce a dechlorinization process to take chlorine out of the wastewater. This resolution is to authorize Tri-Muni, the engineers for Tri-Muni, CT Mail, to submit a grant application on behalf of Tri-Muni and its constituent municipalities to the EFC Engineering Planning Grant Program. That is the program that Tim had mentioned previously that we got the funding for the Midpoint Park project. So this is a study to basically, I believe it's with, in coordination with other municipalities. I don't have the total particulars because it talks about a regional grant. The DEC permit will affect a number of municipalities that all have outfalls into the Hudson River. So this is just basically to offer support to the grant application that is being submitted on behalf of Tri-Muni.
Okay. Tim, anything from an engineering point of view?
I know nothing about this.
Well, this just came up,
At least
I
you're
think.
honest.
Right, Jim? It just, something that came because the EFC.
I think it came in Wednesday.
Yeah, it came in Wednesday, so I saw the note, from them. So there's no obligations on our part as
No,
far as
it's
financial. It's just
basically
going ahead and approving the grant application.
And again, as, most of the resolutions that, we've adopted tonight regarding grants, the governing board of a municipality has to act as a governing board in supporting grant applications, and that's what this resolution is.
So I think we can support it. Anybody have a resolution?
I'll move that we, what's the actionable item of this? To
Authorizing the application,
Just to do a
tri-municipal. So each of
study.
us that participates in Tri-Muni needs to approve the filing of the grant application.
So there is a resolution on the agenda.
Yeah,
okay.
99.
Yeah, 2399.
apologize. I will move 99.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. The last resolution.
Actually, there's one more. Did we ever approve 2023-88? Because we approved Part 2 of 101. for the seasonal.
Yes, yes, we did 88.
Okay.
Yeah. So the last resolution, Joe, that I have is the acknowledgement of the correspondence log. That's Resolution 2023-100.
Move.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passed. Thank you. Any items for special consideration?
Yeah, I just want to mention something that you may or may not be aware of, the passing of Mary Schmalz.
Yeah.
Mary was a fixture here at our town board meetings for many years, and always had the interest of the town at the front of her mind at all times. The ramble, I think I heard the word ramble more from Mary Schmalz than I've ever heard. I didn't know what a ramble was until I heard it 3,000 times and finally looked it up. But Mary was always I would say a staple for, I don't know, probably over 10 years, right? That she, I just got an email from the Historical Society this morning. So she passed away recently, 3 days ago. Certainly our condolences, and for an individual who attended that many town board meetings in a row and consistently came back for more, certainly deserves a mention from the dais. And she hasn't been around for a number of years. She moved to California to be with her son, but certainly she will be missed, and we greatly appreciate everything she did for her entire town of Wappinger life that she had here.
I second that. Thank you, Bill. Anything else? Al, do you have anything more?
No.
Okay, I have no further agenda items, and nothing for executive session, so if there's no other items, then...
Just when the next meeting is, just for clarification.
21st of
so
August.
August 21st is the next
Yes.
town board meeting?
Yep.
And
remember our Thursdays, the concerts at Schlott House, that's ongoing, weather permitting.
It's on the website, the schedule of
Yep.
the concerts. Thank
I
you.
make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you, and good night, everyone.